I tend to be very succinct.
Okay. All right. How are you doing, Amy?
I am good. I'm good.
Yeah, I remember first time we meet is at the training, and somehow we can sit together.
Yes, I was late, so the front row was open and you were already in the front rows.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you're also late or you picked the front row.
I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe I was kind of late. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah. So that time, I mean, I heard about Goshen before, but I never really been to Goshen. So when you talk about it, I said, oh, maybe I should go there. And then your mother, that's your mother-in-law, right?
It's my mother. Yeah.
Your mother. Okay.
Yeah.
So your mother kind of invited me to give a talk. Yeah. So what made you decided to run for the office?
So we started going to meetings, I think around last spring. And just with all of the things that were going on nationally, you keep hearing, get involved locally, get involved locally.
Right.
So we started to do that. We started to go to school board meetings. We started to go to city council meetings. We started going to county council meetings, and things were happening so fast, you just could not keep up. And everywhere you go, where you try to get engaged and talk about the issues, people don't want to hear you. They say, you know, be involved, stand up, you know, say when you don't like something, but when you do, people either ignore you or they become really hostile toward you.
Right. Yeah.
So
I can feel that a little bit today. The chairman somehow he didn't like me to bring that up. I don't know why.
For sure. Yeah. So it just became very clear to me after, you know, several of these meetings that nothing is going to change unless we have representatives that really represent the people and aren't just out for themselves to try to get whatever they can get for their business or from the lobbyists or things like that. And I kept looking around saying, okay, surely someone is going to run for this seat, because in this particular seat in District 49, we had a very popular conservative representative here. She actually stepped down after she won the last election.
Oh, okay.
And the seat became open. So the seat was actually filled by a caucus vote. It wasn't somebody who the voters had voted in.
Okay.
So I felt very strongly that someone needed to stand up this time and at least give the voters a choice, rather than just grandfathering this current representative in without having a hearing and saying, yeah, this is what the people want to do.
Oh, okay. So is this your first time get involved in politics?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have been doing a lot of other things. I've got, you know, a couple master's degrees. I've got 2 kids. I'm a wife. So I've been very busy living my life. I like my job. I love my field of study and all the things I do there. And this is just really stepping up out of necessity, saying somebody has to do something. And, you know, nobody was taking it. So I said, you know, I'll be somebody. I will do this and stand here and represent the people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. But why do you feel so, in a way, kind of so pressed to run for office? I mean, is there something you think the current representatives will never take it seriously?
Yeah, I think there's a real disconnect between your average everyday person that's out working, you know, the 8 to 5 job, or even the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. job, all that everyday Americans that are out there working so hard and trying to do the right thing. And these people that are in charge that are making the policies and the laws. There just seems to be a real lack of understanding about how things work for regular people and what works for regular people and what doesn't work for regular people. It feels like no other time in history has the elected official been so out of touch, not even care what their people think, but when they find out what their people think, it's almost like they're angry with them or enraged at them.
Oh, wow.
So I really feel like we we're at a time in history where we're letting people lead us who don't even like us.
Right.
And I think that that is dangerous.
Right. Could you give some examples, like let's say schools, educations. So is there something there you think they should have done something to it, or something they shouldn't have done?
Yeah, so I think with schools, you hear, parents should be engaged, parents should
Right.
be involved in their children's education, but it's always one-sided. They always want you involved doing exactly what they ask you to
Right.
do.
Right.
So if they say you should be engaged or involved, what they mean is you should be in the PTA and make sure you're throwing a party for the teachers, or you should come to this program that we have set up.
Right.
But I feel like there is a real feeling of ownership of the schools of our children. They feel like it's their job to take the children that we have and better society with them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the point of education. The point of education should be for each individual child to say, okay, what are your skills? What are your talents? What are your interests? And let us help you develop into who you want to become. It's
Right.
become more of a, let me develop you into who society needs you to be.
Right.
And yeah, as an adoptive mother, I have a very strong feel, and have since the time when my daughter was a newborn, that this isn't my child. Like, this children are loaned to us from God.
Right.
They're his
Right.
children.
Exactly.
We're the stewards of the children. We're to protect them, do the best we can by them. So the fact that the school thinks they want to take like ownership of these children as if they belong to them, these children belong to God. Right. And for schools to have removed God completely from the schoolroom, no mention of God, and then they expect a good outcome. That's something that I don't understand.
Right. Well, they did it. There's a reason I don't think most of the teachers even realize what is really going on. But if you look at the history of America's education, you start with like people like Harris Mann and later on John Dewey. They all have the mindset is that the children belong to the state. So they feel like the state has responsibility to educate children into something that the state needs. But of course, that can easily be co-opted or hijacked. And that's what we see right now is really the communism under the name of anti-racism. And that's the testimony I gave today at the State House, because I mean, the book written by Libran X. Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I don't know if you have you read that book?
I have heard about the book. I have not read the book.
And that book actually is a recommended book by most school districts, public, private, to high school students and parents and teachers. But the basic, there is one paragraph there that should jump out at them, but they somehow think it's okay. So it's exactly the words is that he said that the capitalism is inherently racist. Racism is inherently capitalist, and they burst together by unnatural causes, and one day they will die by unnatural causes. That's blatant communism. And why are schools still, not only we want the teachers and students to read it, and some school corporations even hired him, paid him like $20,000 to $50,000 per hour to lecture the teachers. And it is, to me, like, it's a shock.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that's been hard to grasp is the level of evil that some people have. Because I think if you're a normal, good person going about your life, doing the things that you do, you think everyone else is like you. And you don't think that there are people that have these kind of sinister plots going on. And your first reaction when you hear about them is to say, oh, that's not really happening.
Right.
But I think what's happening here is there is true injustice in the world.
Right.
There is true injustice in America.
Right.
These are things that we should work to do something about. But we have had people that have true evil intent take people's goodwill and they're wanting to do something that's right and just, and they have twisted it into a new form of racism that on its face is racism.
Right.
And I have two children. One of my children is brown, one of my children is white. I'm not as worried about my white child as I am about my brown child with this kind of training, because he's going to be fine. And everything I hear is that, oh, you just don't want white kids to learn about slavery. No, I don't need my child having people tell her that she's bad because of what she looks like. Yeah. I don't need someone telling her that for 20 years because that's not going to be good for her self-esteem.
Right. And also it's not true. I mean, I think most white people in America, their ancestors immigrate to this country after the Civil War. They had nothing to do with slavery, but just blame someone just because someone, I mean, the skin color, that just blatant racism.
Yeah, it is. And it takes our focus off what we can actually do today, because if you're spending all your time focusing on like who hated who and what was done to who, you're not focusing on the problem that's sitting right in front of you, which might be that kid that's sitting at the lunch table by himself and needs someone to sit and be his friend. Right. We don't need to figure out why, like, is he sitting by himself because he's this color or that color or whatever. Just go be a friend.
Right. Yeah. And so you went to school boards, right? School board meetings.
Yes.
So what's your experience there?
So our school board, first of all, they claim that it's nonpartisan because when you go to be on the ballot, you don't put whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, but we know the political affiliation of almost our entire school board, except for one, is Democratic. Okay. So we know walking into that environment that people are going to have a certain worldview. And they have been.
Sorry, but your district is Republican, right? They
are Republican. Yes. So
and you have a school board made of Democrats.
Yeah, I researched a lot of the school board members just to see where they all come from. And there's definitely a common thread because a lot of the city of Goshen officials are elected in off-year elections. School board elections, so this year will kind of be an off-year election and next year will be presidential election. But most of them have ties to a local college here. And they will promote those candidates at the local college, and then the college students will come out big during voting time.
Oh, right.
And so we tend to get a school board that's not representative of
the parents,
the population here. Okay. Yeah. Wow. And also, so I think there are 5 schools in our county. And a lot of the people that are conservative and have options for higher cost housing and things like that, they would not live in the school district. This would not be your school district of choice if you were primarily concerned about which public school your kids would go to. So we have Wani Community Schools, which is really highly desired. We have Middlebury Public Schools, which is really highly desired. So most people would choose to live in those that are conservative. Right. And then, so this area tends to be a little more democratic. But they have been welcoming to us in terms of allowing us the time to speak, even though it's not required for them to speak. Okay. I won't say they're always attentive and listening to what you're talking about during those meetings, but I think the superintendent in particular does listen and will comment on things that have been said previously. I don't think they have a lot of intent to take action on those things. They're going to continue with what they're trying to do, but they have not, I wouldn't say they've been hostile or unwelcoming to us.
Okay. Yeah. So I think so far, but based on my experience, most school boards are, at least they have, I mean, they'll set their lesson, even though they probably won't do anything. But there are, like, there's couple school boards are just so bad. Like
Yeah.
one example is Common Clay school board. It's just like they are really against the parents.
Yeah, I think one thing that's frustrating for us is there's no substantive discussion that takes place among the school board at the school board meeting,
Mhm.
which is very different from what I've seen at other school boards. So our school board meeting will have a very set agenda. They will take, like, they have members of the school board that are members of different committees. So they'll take committee reports, which
Right.
is usually 1 or 2 sentences, like, on Tuesday, my committee met and we talked about having more tomatoes in our salad or something like that, and just very dry. And the only thing they vote on is like, hey, here's a number of checks that need to be approved for
Right,
this
right, yeah.
school, but there's never any like discussion about like, are we gonna have like masks in school and let the public actually see that discussion? We don't have anything like that at our
Yeah.
school board.
Yeah, well, the public basically has no say in school board meetings. They just more or less they already know that what they are going to do. It's just like more kind of formality to them. So do you see like any racial tension lately in the school?
No, I don't see any racial tension in the school that I've witnessed because my kids don't go to the public school here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in our public school, we've got a little bit of a different demographic. About 55% of the children in Goshen Community Schools are Hispanic.
Hmm.
And then another large portion is white students. And then there's a small percentage of other minority students.
I see. Okay.
But I have not heard like inside the school about race problems they're having. We hear more about safety concerns because there are a lot of concerns. Some of the children will not use the bathroom all day because there's so much terrible things happening in the bathroom with drugs and things that they do not want to go in there.
Oh,
There are
wow.
halls that children will not go down. We had 3 girls that were using drugs in the bathroom. One of them nearly died just in the
Wow.
past few months. We've had parents report that their children have come home high on drugs and they take it to the school and ask about it. And they say, well, we're doing the best we can. Kids are doing what they do. So what I'm seeing more of is because of these equity movements that they have, the way that's being translated is, well, some kids come from a bad environment, so we can't have the bar very high for them behaviorally. We have to make sure that they can succeed. So we're not going to ask very much of them. So we've seen the dress code get changed. Things like policies on tardies get changed. At one point during the year, there were like hundreds of tardies. I think it was like 700 tardies happening. And so their solution to this is to have the teachers go in the hall and find out from like the high school students, hey, what do you need to be in class on time? Let me help you. So instead of holding the kids accountable and saying,
Oh, man.
hey, buddy, you got to be to class because
Right.
when your job starts, your job starts.
Right.
They put more pressure on the teachers. So that's what I'm seeing more happen is because of these equity programs, we're not treating children and teenagers as capable.
No.
We're putting that on the teachers to make the kids succeed. And so the teachers are frustrated. They're
Right.
getting more pressure, more work, more tests, more documentation. And we're not requiring anything of the students because we're saying, well, it wouldn't be nice to ask them to do more. And I think the opposite. Like, I think that the more you expect of someone, they're going to rise to that.
Right.
And we're robbing them of that chance. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's actually very dangerous, this kind of practice. I mean, I have seen something like that, but not to that extent. At a private school is treating high schoolers like like elementary school.
Yeah.
It's more can baby them instead like be tough, right? Just
Yeah.
get done with. And I have a couple of students, they are kind of shy. They don't want to get on to the front of the class. I can understand that. But the solution from administrators is just don't call them up. Instead of say, help them, right?
Yeah.
Help them. And we also see the same trend in colleges, the safe space and all that. So we'll baby them from K through 12, then we'll baby them in college, and then we're going to throw them in the real world. And
yeah,
those people just going to have hard time to survive.
yeah, it's not the kind thing to do. I was a very, very backward, shy child when I was young.
Mhm.
And my mom would make me do these things that I don't want to do, all the time.
Right.
And when I got one of my first professional jobs in this current industry that I'm in, it was doing a lot of travel for work and things like that. And so I'm supposed to like get on an airplane, go to a strange city I've never been to before, walk into like a surgeon's office and explain to him how to do something, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, if my mom had just said like, no, just like sit at home, I won't be doing any of this.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically you just won't be able to function in the real world. Yeah. And how about the city council meetings? You say you went to there. What do you see there?
So those are very interesting. Those are also very liberal. We have a mayor who is a Democrat mayor. The council is kind of split, but everybody pretty much does what the mayor wants to do.
Wow.
So it's very congenial. They do have discussions about different topics, but I find that there is not a depth of understanding of how a city runs and things like that. So they often defer to the experts. A big company will come in and they say, hey, we would like a TIF in order to build residential apartments, in Goshen. Well, we've never given a TIF for residential before, but they all say like, is that okay? And they look to the lawyer, can we do that? Okay, yeah, let's do it. There's not a lot, it's not a deep bench as far as knowing the economics of this area. How is this going to impact our economy overall? Right. We've got one of the poorest tax bases anywhere around. Like if you look at the most recent census results, the incomes in this area are extremely low. These apartment buildings that they want to build will rent between $1,200 and $1,800. Wow. The average people that live here, they can't afford this apartment building, but we're going to give that company tax incentives to put in an expensive apartment building. So we're taking taxes from this poor guy making $20,000 a year to let this person build a residential apartment that minimum one bedroom is $1,200 a month, that this poor guy could never afford to live in. Right. But he's got to subsidize,
it's just wrong.
People, people living there. So I feel like it's just not, they're well-intentioned people. I think they ran for office because they want to make a difference and they want to do good things. But I don't see a lot of deep background and research in terms of the things you would hope people would know when they're running your city. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there is no accountability there. So if we don't have accountability, then of course you just do the bare minimum, right? I mean, people just, the kind of human nature. That's what I see on a lot of school administrators and also our elected officials. There is not much accountability. I mean, for example, you probably see that there is a graph about our iStep and iLearn doing this huge job, right? And there's no one was held accountable for that.
No. And the solution is we're going to change the test. The test is bad.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's one way to go.
Yeah. Yes.
And the other thing that I've seen them do is apply equity scores that cause the school to immediately go up. So when I was researching this summer, some, these kind of statistics about I-STEP scores, things like that. Are we really doing worse? Are we doing better? Because I don't like to take at face value what someone tells me. I like to actually look it up.
Right.
So I looked at, all this data, had it in my spreadsheets, everything, had everybody sorted by how they did. And our particular school was 4 out of 5 as far as, being toward the bottom of the list in terms of education. Well, then I looked at US News and World Report, and that school was rated second. And so I started doing some digging and found that in 2019, US News and World Report changed the way they ranked the schools. They added a diversity score.
Yeah.
And so that brings this school from a 4 to a 2. And they say, oh, look, we're doing so much better. And they actually in October gave a presentation on this at the school.
Celebrated?
Acting as if it was a great thing, right? That, hey, for other students who have our demographic, we're doing okay.
No.
That to me, if the superintendent down believes about education, well, for these kids, we're doing the best we can. That's not an acceptable school for my child. I'm sorry. Like, no.
Yeah. Well,
No.
Yeah, it looks like right now, the real option that parents have is just take their kids out of the public school. I mean, so far, I don't think they have any indication that they are going to do something different.
No, there is no indication they'll do something different. I think that the unions are too deeply ensconced into the schools. There are too many lobbyists making too much money, too many consultants making too much money, too many superintendents and administrators making too much money.
Right.
And, I have no problem with people being rewarded with a good income for a good job.
Right.
That's America, right? You do a good job, you get the credentials you go in and do something amazing, you deserve to be rewarded. You could buy a yacht, you could buy a mansion for all I care. My thing is, you don't get rewarded for doing poorly. You can't have education go from like a B to a D and you're going to get handsomely rewarded. And that's what we're doing. And that's what I take issue with.
Yeah. And you see that, I mean, they keep doing something new. And each time they're doing something new is to hide something, is hide how bad they are.
Yeah.
I remember when they switched from I-STEP to Island, they said, oh, we just cannot compare.
Yeah.
Okay. Why you do that if you cannot even compare? I mean, it's just horrible. So what do you think is a solution then? You think we need to change at the legislature level? Because otherwise I don't see any leverage that as parents have.
Yeah, I think privatizing education is key, right? In the private sector, we do not have these poor performance problems, period, end of story. I think that in the public schools, it's not working for administrators, it's not working for teachers, it's not working for parents, and it's certainly not working for the students. So why are we taking 50% of our local tax dollars and pouring it into something that's not working? I think we should try something new. I think we should privatize education, have people set up schools and have them be clear about what their values for each school is. And then parents can pick, hey, I want my child to have a Christian education. I want my child to have a social justice education. I want my child to have an art-focused education or a science-focused education. Instead of pretending that we don't have these worldviews and values and these different focuses in the school, let's just privatize it and be clear about what each school wants and let people pick what they want to do.
So you mean like break down public school?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how quickly that could be done. I don't know if it could be done very quickly. The union, of course, is going to fight that because the only person the school's working for is the union and the Democrat Party.
Right.
Other than that, it's not working for anybody, but fighting
No,
those
no.
two entities would be a big fight for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that those kids, when they are indoctrinated in school right now, and when they become voters, they will vote. They will change our country into something, something we don't want. I mean, they're going to vote for bigger government. They're going to vote for more government control, because government can give them free, give them some free money, uh, things like that. So then our republic is in danger.
It is in danger, but I have a lot of hope because number one, I believe in personal accountability.
Mhm.
So in this situation, I look at myself, I look at my family, and I say, how are we spending our time? What are the things that we're doing at home? What are the values we have, the things we believe that create a strong society and strong people? So I
Right.
think each parent that's in this situation has to focus on themselves, take accountability for themselves and their own families first, because that will definitely strengthen society. And I think in terms of God being in the public square, I think that is something that is hugely important for us. We
Right.
have to teach our children that you cannot decouple education from God.
Right.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And if we
Exactly.
start at that place, we will always end up in a better situation than if we try to bring in all of these secular religions to take care of secular problems.
Yeah.
So I think that the
And
situation is dire and that our republic is at stake. But I also think that if godly people turn to God, do what he says, just open the Bible, do what it says, train up your children in the fear and understanding of the Lord, have scripture in your home, pray with your children, teach your children how to be studious, how to do good work. I think if we do those things, I think we're going to be fine.
Right.
And they can do whatever they're going to do. But I know that the God I serve, he says if he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He doesn't care how big the enemy is.
Right.
So I think for us, we focus on God because he can do whatever he wants to do. So
Mhm.
instead of focus on the enemy, I'm going to focus on myself, my
Amen.
family, serving God. And I think if enough of us do that,
Right.
I do think it would turn society around.
Yeah. I think last year is really an eye-opening experience for many parents. And because before they just trusted the school, trust the schools, trust the teachers and the superintendent and all that. And then they realized that something's wrong. Not only there is not much academic, then you have this, uh, this equity, diversity, and inclusion, and things kind of sneak in through social emotional learning, and and also the mindset a lot of teachers have is that because they were being indoctrinated in college, so they would the way you look at that, they look at the children's, they are kind of like the parents. They are, basically they wanted to turn children, just like you mentioned earlier, into something either uh, for the society or for community or for social justice or for anti-racism. It's trying to turn them into some kind of social activists. Yeah, so that's I think a lot of parents saw that and they didn't like it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's a whole nother group of parents that haven't really gotten to that place yet, because it is hard to admit that you're wrong, right? If you've had a child that from the time they're 5 years old, you put them on the bus and you said,
Yeah.
Have a good time out there. And now that child is 14 years old and you feel like you've done the wrong thing all those years. Saying that out loud or admitting that is really hard to do. So I think there's a group of parents who have realized it for the first time and are not happy.
Right.
I think there's a group of parents that are like, oh, I hear about this stuff, but I don't really want to look at it because like, I don't want to know.
Right.
And then there's a group of parents that are like, yeah, I think that's what's been happening. But if I say something out loud, I'm going to have to do something about it. And my kid likes sports. They're in ballet. They're in math club. They don't want their kids to give up their friends and all their things and all the stuff that they have. And that's a really hard choice to make. So I think we've got parents at all different levels of the spectrum looking at things differently. So I do think the answer is giving them other good options.
Right.
So instead of always like fighting against something, is fight for something, fight for really good school options, fight for legislation that allows that money to travel with that child so that every parent can have a right for school choice. Like for me, I'm in a situation where, I moved into the school district and I said, that school doesn't align with my values. My children are not going to go there. I look up, the school choice stuff and we don't qualify for that, but I say, I have school choice because I'm going to pay for them to go. So we just go somewhere else. I think every parent should have that option. You don't have to wait for next year. You don't have to be in a failing school for a full year. You don't have to have a certain income. If your school is teaching things that you feel are inappropriate or dangerous for your child, or you just don't want to go to that school, you should be able to move your child.
Right, exactly. Okay, so can you summarize like what are you running on as a state representative?
Yes. So I think number one is putting God back in the public square, because I do think you have to have the first thing before you can have anything else. And I really do feel like a lot of the problems that are in our society today are because we have removed God from the public square. I think more than any time in history, you are not free to speak the name of God and the name of Jesus out loud in public. I've had situations recently where there are certain rooms where I'm not even allowed to give a speech where I'm going to mention God or Jesus right here in our town. I have had situations at work where that if someone understands your values and what you believe, you will be fired. This is not America.
No.
So for me, that's first and foremost, put God first. We need to have our freedoms back. That includes our freedom of religion.
Right.
It was never freedom from religion.
No,
it was
never.
Freedom of religion. And we let them trick us and think it's freedom from religion.
Right.
So that's my main thing, is that we need our freedoms back. We need freedom of religion. We need our freedom of speech back. Medical freedom. We are not, we don't take medicines because the government tells us every single person has to have this medication.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm against that. And then I am very pro-life. And also I've been learning a lot about the abolition movement and the difference between abolitionist and pro-life. And that's a whole nother discussion, but definitely abolishing abortion is something that is very important to me.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for like sharing with me, and I really encouraged that people like you step up and to run for to the office. And without people like you, I don't think things will change.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And if there's anyone else on the fence about something they need to stand up for and do, I think now's the time. So be brave, be courageous, and stand up, because I have a lot of hope if we all do that.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know anyone running for school board in your neighborhood?
I do, yes. Rob Rader is running for school board, and we're reaching out to some other people and trying to encourage them as well.
Oh, I'd love to kind of interview them.
Yeah, I will let them know. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Yeah. God bless you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.